I mean, we know some of the stories, so yeah, it was going pretty well.
And Bruce we met him. I was older than those guys a little bit, and so I was already finished school, been in the service in the Korean War, and been in Hawaii. And Bruce was still in the Navy, and he was stationed at a submarine in Honolulu, and we were surfing. And Bruce was like right out of high school. He didn't go to college, and he had a little 8mm camera. We're on the beach at Makaha and lived in Waianae, and Bruce would come out and take a few pictures of it. But, he didn't have a telephoto lens. He had to get right next to you. So most of them were on the beach, or maybe you're in the shore break. You'd never take a picture with anybody at the Makaha Point or anything. So that's what started Bruce, and then we'd start showing him at the Hobie shop after in the afternoon or after the evening. So Bruce became just what we all did. I mean, we played together, from since teenagers to right to the very end. Bruce and I took Walter, Bruce, and Rennie Yater, and we rode the Colorado 500. I took them up there. I used to ride it every year, and we did that in the motorcycle. So Hobie would make dark glasses. He'd make the Hobie Hawk. He'd invent all these new toys for us. So what else could you do?
Since this is Laguna Legends Day, I also want to say this, because this is to your earlier question, is that what's incredible about the story is that I actually didn't know that it all started here when I started this project. I was more interested in the fact that Dick had been to Cape St. Francis first, and I wanted to tell that story. But when I first interviewed Walter Hoffman, it was incredible. It was like all the bells and whistles went off. It's like, well, we were at Oak Street, and Hobie came over and said, I want to ride your board. And then he said, I want to shape one. And he's like, let's go up to General Veneer. And I was like, wow, like it all started here. And then Dick started hitchhiking at the Sandpiper. So, it all started here. So here's to Laguna Beach.
And here's to getting stuck at the Sandpiper. We've all been there.
How many times? Stuck to the floors.
So Dick, thinking back, we've talked about the kind of the stories of the movie, and now that you've seen the finished product, when people see this and they see kind of the origins and what went into the relationship, and how you reached out to Bruce, what are you hoping people take home from your experiences, and what you want to kind of bestow upon all the viewers that are watching this?
Well, I've seen it 4 times now, 2 times in Newport, and this is the second night in Laguna. And Richard really did a good job. I get pretty emotional about it just because of Whitmore. He would have been, he came here and stayed with me 6 times from South Africa. I went there 12 times. He came over here and stayed with me 6 times. So he met Hobie and Bruce and all the guys here in Laguna at parties, and he could party with all of them. And we had a great time. But Richard really pulled that all together to me. And after a couple of shows at Newport, I asked 2 friends of mine that came to the shows in Newport that were girls that didn't really surf and didn't have an interest in surfing. So I think what makes it so great is it tells a story. It's got surfing in it, certainly, but it tells a story, and it was so much like Endless Summer, which told the story. That's what made Endless Summer so great. It was a travel. It had a bunch of other stuff besides
waves. Yeah, and I think, Alex, in the context of the movie, you put it really well as to why the timing of the film was so good, too, with the Vietnam War going on and the Martin Luther King's assassination, well, you can tell us more about that. But, what was your point of view on the film as you saw it?
No, I think that's
working so long with Bruce.
Yeah, I think that's
so unique that he spent so many years with Bruce.
You got to put it in context. Bruce went there. That was actually after you had gone there and really done the scouting. And that's what's really so amazing about this story and why it needed to be told, is that basically when you look at that journey through Tahiti and then Australia and then all the way over to Africa, today when we go to South Africa, we jump on a jumbo jet, go to South Africa, Dakar, down, and it's about 40 Joburg and then Port Elizabeth. Yeah. It's about a round trip, 40 hour there, 40 hour back, 80 hours, right? So, you look at this, he was gone for a couple of years. And that's, I think, in that sense, the world has become so global, and yet the most global person is sitting right here, and that's what's really amazing. And again, in context of the 60s, you're looking at the Ford Mustangs coming out, Martin Luther King again. This is a very tumultuous sort of era that we're in at that time, and here these guys are out there, and then Bruce followed that lead, obviously, which again, as you said in the story, no one knew where that was going to end.
Yeah.
We know today where it ended, and it's surfing is in the Olympics. The world has come together because of surfing in many ways. So that's a really beautiful story. So I think again, this film really sort of captures that essence and pulls it all together.
Yes.
I think that's actually amazing point, and also makes me realize too, again, the relationships that were formed on that trip. And that's when you sit and hitchhiking for 17 days and not one car passes. When you meet that guy that finally gives you a ride, you build a relationship with him, right? You trade driving. These relationships are deeper, and that's sort of, in a way, Bruce could do the quick trip, because Dick had done all the hard work.
Well, it wasn't hard work. Well, it was.
Not to take anything away from Bruce's trip, because he was actually handling film cans, if you can imagine, down in Africa, and somehow got them all back.
Yeah,
I think
that's
the critical one they might have taped to their chest or something. The Cape St. Francis footage, that's out for the outtakes.
Well, what I'd give to party with you and Peanuts back in the day, I'd pay money for that.
That's all we're trying to do
we
is
can still
bring
party.
Peanuts
Yeah.
back to life.
By the way,
Well,
this just in, Dick still parties. Yeah. Right.
Well, that's what
Quite
I
a
was
bit.
saying about Laguna.
Yeah.
The characters that were here. Peanuts was beyond. Hevs McClellan, those were my older brothers. I didn't have any brothers. And so those two guys kind of raised me. My dad, when I got running around, I don't know, 5 or 6 years old on the main beach, and he was cooking hamburgers, and he told Hevs and Peanuts to look after me. He'd give them a hamburger and a beer at the end of the day to keep me out of the water from drowning, because I was running around, and they were, it was during the Depression, and there was no jobs, and these guys lived on the beach, and they just survived by their wits, by lobster fishing and abalone, which was kind of junk food then, but it's the top of the line right now. So they would trade my dad for that kind of food, and then he'd give them a hamburger, and a hamburger only cost a dime then, by the way. So it wasn't a big giveaway. But that was background of the movie guys coming down here, the artists, and you talk about Walter Hoffman. He was born in Hawaii. I don't know why I say why. He was born in Hollywood, and Flippy and Walter moved to Laguna because Laguna was unique. Bruce Brown came down here. This is where it was happening, and Laguna was just a different kind of a place that people wanted to be involved at.
Well, it's still happening thanks to you and your cohorts.
Also, Coast Film Festival stoking the fire.
Yeah.
For us. Thank you, Coast Film Festival.
So just because we're on a time crunch, we do have a curfew, which is very unlike Laguna. I think Timothy Leary would be very upset right now. But I think this is a good opportunity to give just one big final thank you to Dick Metz.
Dick's going to sign some posters over here, too. If you guys want a poster, Dick's going to sign them.
Signing posters. Yeah. Beautiful film. Richard Yelland. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. To take us out, it gives me great pleasure. We're going to be bringing Matt Costa. So we can bring up the noise again. Make some noise. Keeping it Laguna and lovely.